There are days, for no particular reason, when you suddenly feel like a stranger in your own life. It's not sadness, nor is it exactly a sense of being lost. It's simply a very quiet feeling, as if you have passed through here many times before. And now, you are watching life through the eyes of someone who has remembered something deeper. Since ancient times, the questions, who am I? Where do I come from? And where will I go? Have flowed silently through the human heart like an endless river. Across every culture, every faith, there are whispers about a journey longer, wider, and deeper than anything the eyes can see. A journey of the soul. Edgar Cayce, the prophet, known as the sleeping prophet, once said that reincarnation is not a punishment. It is a gift, an opportunity for the soul to learn, to grow, and ultimately to return home. But the soul does not measure time with calendars or clocks. The soul measures through inner growth, through lessons absorbed into blood and bone, through footsteps truly walked with complete love and awakened awareness. So how can we know if our soul is nearing the final steps of a long journey? There are signs subtle, yet profound, that, if you listen in deep stillness, you will feel, not through the mind, but through a deep inner knowing. In the next part, we will open those signs together, like small doors leading back to an ancient memory you have never truly forgotten. A memory of yourself, a memory of home. You still live among the world. You still laugh, still talk, still join small gatherings and family reunions. You still savor the taste of a warm cup of tea. Listen to the birds singing outside the porch at dawn. But something has changed, quietly, without noise, like an invisible veil slowly thinning, revealing a truth you had never seen before. You begin to see the world as a dazzling play characters taking their roles, stories intertwining, struggles and glories unfolding yet in your heart. You know, it is all merely a stage curtain, temporary, illusory. It is not that you no longer love this world. On the contrary, your love for it becomes deeper than ever. But it is no longer the kind of love that seeks to possess or cling. It is the love of a traveler who knows they are only resting briefly before continuing a journey far longer than any road drawn on a map. You might find yourself sitting among friends, listening to stories of success, of wealth, of grand projects to come. And while everyone else is eager and passionate, you feel as if you are listening from somewhere very far away, without judgment, without disdain, simply no longer caught up in that current. What others find important, power, fame, the need to prove oneself, gradually loses its grip on you, not because you are trying to let go, but because you have seen through it. Like a child growing up and realizing that the toys, which once meant the world now, are only pieces of memory, precious, but no longer the center of life. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, you feel it very clearly. Everything material around you, the house, the car, the objects you once chose so carefully, all seem dusted with a light film of time. They no longer have the power to dominate you. They no longer have the power to terrify you when lost, or to thrill you excessively when gained. The material world, which you once thought was real, now feels like a temporary painting, a tapestry woven from dreams, expectations, and collective agreements. You begin to understand that true value is not found in what can be held in the hands. It is found in who you become quietly, deeply, unchanging, amid all transformations. There may be times when this difference makes you feel lonely, when your heartbeat no longer matches the crowd, when you choose silence over argument, when you smile gently at the races for things you know will sooner or later vanish like morning mist. But do not fear that loneliness. It is not the loneliness of the abandoned. It is the sacred solitude of a soul remembering its distant home. And strangely, from within that separation, another door opens. You begin to notice small things you never paid attention to before. The way the afternoon light brushes softly against the leaves, the way a breeze carries a scent that is foreign yet somehow familiar, the way the eyes of a stranger can contain an entire silent universe. Every moment, every breath, every glance becomes a simple miracle. No need to explain, no need to possess, only to be present, only to love. This is the first and deepest sign that your soul is preparing for a great shift, no longer seeking in the world what can only be found within yourself. And when that happens, you no longer fear loss. You no longer crave possession. You simply know, quietly, that what truly belongs to you will never leave you. In the next part, we will dive deeper into another sign, just as strange and beautiful. When the doors to past life memories quietly begin to open, and you start to remember things that the mind cannot name. Sometimes, in the middle of an entirely ordinary day, you suddenly feel as if you have been here before, even though your mind insists that you have never set foot in this place before. Maybe it happens when you step into an old house, run your hand along moss-covered walls, and your heart tightens with a nameless longing. Maybe it happens when your eyes meet a stranger's on the street, and in that moment, without words, without introduction, you somehow know that you have known them before, somewhere, long ago. It is not just a fleeting moment of déjà vu. It is a door of time gently opening within you, a vibration resonating with memories the current mind cannot explain. Edgar Cayce believed that profound déjà vu experiences, those moments when the soul remembers, are signs that the boundary between lifetimes is thinning. It is when the straight line of time begins to bend, and layers of memory from other lives quietly touch the present. You might sit in a small cafe, suddenly knowing that the barista behind the counter once stood beside you in a battle from a faraway age. You might stroll down an unfamiliar street, and your heart hums a melody you have never learned, as if it had been woven into your blood from another era. No reason needed, no proof required, only a deep knowing within. Modern science has tried to explain déjà vu as a minor glitch in the nervous system. But those who have lived through those moments too real, too vivid, understand that it is not merely a technical error. It is the echo of the soul. It is like touching a door that has been sealed for centuries, only for a flood of memory to break through like an underground river, unstoppable, beyond explanation. Edgar Cayce once said that as the soul approaches the completion of its cycle of reincarnation, the walls of time grow thinner. The invisible veils between lives begin to lift, not to cause confusion, but to remind you you have been more than you remember. You have lived, loved, fought, and sacrificed not just once. And now, your soul is slowly gathering all these fragments, like a craftsman collecting shards of an ancient mirror, to recreate the full portrait of who you truly are. If you have ever experienced such moments, know that they are not coincidences. They are not imagination. They are reminders, a gentle tapping on the door of your heart, inviting you to remember the parts of your soul carefully stored away across lifetimes. And you do not have to force yourself to remember. You only need to open your heart. Allow the silence to soak into your every breath. Allow even the softest breeze to carry whispers from ancient shores. A child suddenly speaks of cities they have never read about. A woman sits and draws ancient symbols she has never seen. Someone bursts into tears upon hearing a foreign language, as if it were their long-lost mother tongue. All these small things are doors, cracks in the wall of time, keys you have carried inside you for countless lives. And when you step through these doors, it is not to live in the past, but to understand every journey you have taken, every lesson you have learned has led you to this very moment. The moment you awaken, the moment you remember who you are. In the next part, we will step deeper into another realm where death is no longer a threat, but an old friend welcoming you with open arms. A gentle transition. The soul, when ready, realizes it has no need to fear. There was a time when death was spoken of as humanity's greatest enemy, a taboo, a foreign darkness people tried to avoid at all costs. But when your soul draws near the final steps of its reincarnation cycle, death no longer appears with that frightening face. Instead, it becomes familiar, like an old friend you have not seen in a long time, like a gentle smile waiting across the riverbank. You begin to feel, in the deepest part of yourself, that death is not an ending. It is a transition, a journey from one form of life to another. No more fear of separation, no more despair over loss, only a deep, steady peace, as if you have walked through this door many times before. Edgar Cayce once described that souls nearing the completion of their journey carry within them a vague yet powerful memory of having died and been reborn. And because they remember that death was never truly an end, they no longer fear it as something unknown. Death, to them, is like the sunset over the sea, not the extinguishing of light, but the promise of a new journey beyond the reach of the ordinary eye. As you walk this path of awakening, you will also begin to notice subtle but profound changes in how you perceive life and death. You no longer rush to gather and accumulate, as if racing against time. You no longer see the wrinkles on your face as enemies, but as small rivers carved by time and love. You no longer panic at loss, but embrace it gently as a natural part of the endless flow. There may be moments in deep silence when you feel death as a presence very close, not threatening, not violent, but like a cool breeze brushing your skin. A gentle reminder that this life is precious, precisely because it is fragile. And every breath, every glance, every embrace is a miracle. With that understanding, you live more fully, you love more deeply, you forgive more easily. You no longer let small wounds block the soft light of presence. You no longer fear losing the ones you love, because you know that love, once bonded at the soul level, never truly disappears. It only changes form, like water becoming cloud, then rain again. In the journey of souls completing their final lives, death is not a confrontation. It is a natural passage, like day following night, like spring succeeding winter. Modern science, through studies on near-death experiences, has begun to observe strange common patterns: a warm, welcoming light, a feeling of connection to a greater source, an overwhelming presence of unconditional love. These are not hallucinations. They are fragments of memory from the true home the soul once knew and loved. And if now, as you sit here, listening to these words, some part of your heart stirs, a vague memory, a silent knowing, then perhaps your soul, too, has brushed against that boundary before and knows to die is simply to shed an old garment. And life, true life, has never been interrupted. To die is to return home, not a lonely departure, but a joyful reunion with parts of yourself, with those you have loved, with the light you have carried in your heart across countless lifetimes. In the next part, we will open another phenomenon, one that often arrives like a whisper from the universe, when strange coincidences begin to flow together and reality starts to answer the silent beats of the soul. One of the strangest and most beautiful signs that your soul is nearing the completion of its earthly journey is the feeling that the desires once burning fiercely in your heart begin to quiet down. Not because you have lost your passion or your life force, not because you have fallen into apathy or drained hope, but because the deepest part of you has begun to remember that what you have been seeking all along was never outside yourself. Do you remember, when you were younger, how you chased success, recognition, love, self-affirmation? Those longings once set your heart on fire. They kept you awake through endless nights, drove you to work to the edge of exhaustion, even sacrificed the things you truly loved, because you believed that if you could achieve that, a higher title, a larger account balance, a greater admiration, then you would find peace, you would find worth, you would finally fill some unnamed emptiness inside. But as your soul moves closer to the end of its journey, a certain stillness begins to spread. You realize that what you once chased was only shadows. What you truly sought has always been within you. You no longer act in order to achieve something. You act because of the inner fullness of simply living, loving, and sharing. You no longer require life to grant you something before you feel whole. You become the source, just like a river does not need to prove its existence by sweeping everything away. It simply flows, and life naturally sprouts around it. You can still have dreams. You can still build, create, imagine. But now, these desires are no longer colored by the fear of loss, no longer burdened by the insecurity of needing to become someone. You no longer seek your worth through the eyes of others. You are no longer driven by internal scarcity. You are already whole, even before the world offers you anything. And strangely, it is precisely when you release the tightness of desire that life gently brings gifts to you, not as rewards for striving, but as a natural resonance of a soul that is open to receiving. You will notice this change through very small things. You are less impatient while waiting for the fruits of your efforts. You find your heart peaceful, even on days when there is no achievement. You cherish the simple joys, a quiet morning, a sincere conversation, a wildflower growing by the roadside, and you stop demanding life to follow your script. You let life breathe freely, change freely, and you dance with it without force, without resistance. Edgar Cayce once said that the natural fading of desires is not a sacrifice, but a sign that the soul has truly grasped the greatest lesson of life, that nothing outside can complete a being that is already whole. You do not need to renounce the world. You simply stop leaning on it as your only salvation. You will still love. You will still dream. You will still create. But you will do all these things not to fill a void, but to share the abundance of a heart that has found its home. Just like a garden well watered, it naturally releases its fragrance, not to be praised, but simply because that is its nature. In this state, you begin to see every creature, human, animal, plant, not as something to possess or control, but as companions, each on their own journey of remembering themselves. And your love, your true love, becomes no longer selective, no longer demanding, no longer conditional. Only presence remains, like sunlight shining on both the good and the wicked, like rain soaking both the golden rice fields and the wild grasslands. In the next part, we will journey even deeper into a finer layer of perception, when the material world, once seen as solid, begins to dissolve like morning mist, and you begin to sense the deeper reality hidden behind all appearances. One day, quite unexpectedly, you look at the world around you, and everything suddenly appears different. The room you are sitting in, the walls, the familiar objects, all of them seem fragile, as if you could see through them, as if by reaching out your hand, you might touch another layer of reality, deeper, more real, more silent. It is not an illusion. It is not a trick of the imagination. It is the natural unveiling of perception, when your soul is ready to see the world as it truly is. you realize everything you once thought was solid, matter, the body, social roles, the stories of human life, are just images flowing through a vast dream, a dream so vivid, so intricate, that most of us forget we are dreaming. We believe we are the roles, the stories, the possessions. We cling to these forms, like a child clutching an old toy in their hand. But as your soul nears completion, the thin veil separating outer appearances from inner truth begins to dissolve. You no longer see this world as a fixed stage. You see it as a river of energy in constant transformation, like mist swirling around mountains, like moonlight dissolving into morning fog. And in that moment, a strange freedom blooms within you. You no longer fear loss. You are no longer bound by success or failure. You understand that everything comes, goes, and changes, and that this, precisely, is the greatest beauty of life. Edgar Cayce once shared that the material world is but a mask, covering deeper, broader, and more eternal layers of reality. Modern scientists, in their research into the holographic universe, have also begun touching this idea that what we call solid matter is actually just vibrations of energy, harmonic waves forming the illusion of form. But you do not need to read hundreds of studies to feel this truth. You only need one moment of stillness, one moment where you truly see without judgment, where you allow things to reveal themselves beyond their outer shells. In that moment, you will see that this body is just a biological stream, temporarily bearing your shape, that the house you live in, the roads you walk, are just fleeting scenes within the long dream, that even sadness, joy, victories, losses, are but tiny ripples on the infinite lake of consciousness. And when you see this, not through the mind, but through the heart, a profound peace will fill you. You stop struggling to hold on. You stop resisting when everything changes. You become part of the flow, gentle, natural, trusting, like a leaf surrendering itself to a stream, not needing to know where it will drift. For the leaf realizes the flow is home. The dissolution of rigid perception does not leave you lost. On the contrary, it makes you love this world even more, with a love that no longer demands permanence. You love a flower because you know it will wither. You love an embrace because you know it will pass. You love a glance, a smile, a quiet moment because you know it is their fragility that makes them sacred. There is no longer separation between you and the world, no longer a struggle against the river of time. Only unity, gentle, silent, complete. After all the journeys, after all the lessons, after all the cycles of loving and losing, of yearning and breaking, ultimately, you return to where you began. This very moment, no longer needing to search elsewhere, no longer needing to wait for a special event, no longer needing to become anything at all. You begin to realize, deep inside, everything you ever longed for, every wholeness you ever dreamed of, every door you ever knocked on has always been here, always present in every breath you take. And in the moment, you simply stop, right now, and allow your mere existence to soak into every cell. Something miraculous happens. You feel home, not a house of bricks and stones, not a fixed place in the material world, but a home deep within you, a place you never truly left, a place where you have never been broken, never been lacking. All the outward journeys, seeking success, seeking love, seeking recognition, were just circles leading you back to that place. And now, as you exhale softly, releasing yet another layer of heaviness, you realize you do not need to go anywhere to find peace. You only need to stay with yourself. When you drink a sip of water, you are home. When you listen to the birds singing, you are home. When you hug a loved one, when you smile a simple smile, when you walk slowly across the soft, damp earth, you are home. And in each of those moments, there is no longer a separation between you and life. No longer you standing outside, searching for something to complete you. Only a gentle merging between the observer and the observed. Between the self and the world, you become life itself. You become the heartbeat of the earth. You become the whisper of the wind through the branches. You become the soft light resting on the evening waters. Awakening is not a distant destination, not an achievement to boast about, not a special state to strive for. Awakening is simply the return to this moment with your whole heart. And when you are fully in this moment, without resistance, without demands, without expectations, you begin to taste a unique flavor, joy without cause, not joy because something has or will happen, but joy simply because you exist, because you breathe, because you are part of the great miracle we call life. And then, slowly, you realize you do not need to prove you are worthy. You do not need to seek someone to validate your existence. You do not need to go far to find safety, love, or wholeness. You have always been it. In that profound silence, the fear of death fades like morning mist under the rising sun, because you understand that you were never truly born and you will never truly die. You simply shift, transform, experience like dream after dream, like wave after wave. On the infinite ocean of consciousness, you stop asking, "What must I do to awaken?" You simply live, simply breathe, simply love, and allow every moment, every breath, every glance to become a small doorway to the infinite. And if right now, as you are listening to these words, there is a tiny part of you, a very soft vibration, responding, then know this, you have already begun the journey home. No need to rush, no need to strive, no need to be better, deeper, or higher. You simply need to be yourself whole, simple, soaked in love. Because home is not a place you will reach. Home is what you already are. In this breath, in this heartbeat, in the quiet light radiating within you. In the next part, we will step into an even deeper layer of awakening when you begin to realize that behind all names, all stories, all roles, there remains a you eternal, vaster than anything you have ever believed yourself to be. You and I, we have just walked together through a journey, not only with the mind, but with the heart, a journey not seeking definite answers, but opening doors that had never been named. If there was a moment in this video when your heart fell silent, if an image, a word, or a feeling lingered within you, then perhaps you have already begun to remember, and that is enough. No need to explain it. No need to believe it right away. Just let it stay with you, like a quiet seed sprouting in your stillest days. If you feel, even faintly, that somewhere, something is calling you home, know that you are not alone. On this journey, there are many souls walking beside you, silent, gentle, steadfast. If what you heard today touched your heart, leave a small heart in the comments as a signal for those still searching to know that light is still present in this world. If you wish, share your story. Allow your voice to be heard, not perfectly, just truthfully. And if you would like to continue exploring deeper journeys with me, subscribe to the channel. There are still many doors waiting for us to open. There are still many stories that your heart already knows, waiting only to be remembered. See you again, where words fall silent, and only the gentle truth remains shining.